Alex saying he'd fight TikTok virgins. There's the break.
No, you can't put that in. You can't.
Yeah,
no, you can't get the TikTok virgins to come listen to the podcast, and then when they listen to the podcast, immediately abuse them, so they just go back to TikTok.
But that drives engagement.
Don't call me a virgin.
I'm going to listen to more.
Call to action, please. We want to release another episode in our trilogies, and no, that doesn't quite make it a trilogy, but we want to have the fourth take, and that fourth take needs to come from you, our fans, our audience. There's only a few of you, but we want it anyway. Please send us through your questions about any of our past trilogies, preferably the one we just had, so, musicals and then Oscars. Questions and your takes, so we can have a little show around them and include you in the Three Takes of Stupidity. Thank you. Bye.
You're not getting shout-outs, though. We are the fame here. Let's go travelling to the North Country Fair. Like a couple of Rolling Stones, we'll go through it like a hurricane. Hello and welcome to the second episode of the 2025 Oscars trilogy of the Three Takes of Stupidity. This week we're doing 8-time Oscar-nominated pick about the legend that is Robert Alan Zimmerman, a complete unknown. I'm joined by Chandler Monk.
Hello.
James Robbins.
Hiya.
And I'm Alex Clinton. We are the Tambourine Men. Let's get into it before we start knocking on heaven's door.
Yeah, nice. Like that.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
You've not, I think you've only done one bad one, so they're always good.
That was very 50%.
Before we talk about what we've been up to this week, what we've watched, which, everyone is dying to hear, what band shirts have you got on? Band or artist shirts? Chandler, we'll start with you. I think you've mentioned them before.
Yeah, I've got a Koala t-shirt on, my cousin's band, who unfortunately actually broke up recently, but their music's still good, still available on Spotify. Go listen to them, send them some love.
Get them some post-breakup money.
Yeah, exactly.
Alex?
I'm wearing DMAs, a band out of Sydney, Australia. I think they're still going.
Very nice. you two with the Southern Hemisphere bands. And I've got Chance the Rapper's Acid Rap, which, poignant to this, where Mr. Dylan didn't want to perform loads of music, I saw the 10-year anniversary show of this album, and he said he's never going to perform it again. So that's fun. Makes me sad.
Wow. Have you just compared Chance the Rapper to Bob Dylan?
To be honest, that's an insult to Chance the Rapper.
Oh my God.
Terrible.
This is it. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.
What have you guys been up to this week? What have you been watching?
I watched a couple of fantastic episodes of the news, some stuff happening in Turkey.
At time of recording.
Hopefully it has been resolved in a peaceful manner. I started watching the new series of Drive to Survive. Not as interesting as the Turkey situation. But it did focus in the first episode that I've watched to completion about Christian Horner. He was a bit inappropriate with a female colleague. James, we don't know that that's what happened. We don't want to get sued by the Horner family. I'd hate to go at court against Jerry Halliwell.
Allegedly, it was.
Allegedly. James, you want to describe what you're doing for the people that won't see that?
He was doing a honking motion, everyone.
No. Alex has done honking. I was creepily twiddling my fingers.
Oh, that's worse. That's worse.
He's so slimy that...
I also watched a member of our podcast be inappropriate to his colleagues as well.
What?
James doing that.
I have been known to slap Chandler on the bum.
Nice.
We're not an official company yet. You can't sue me.
I'm reporting you to the HR that we don't have.
Maybe that could be Alex's job.
Yeah, he does nothing else. James, what have you been up to this week?
I've actually watched a number of things. I finished Invincible Season 3. I've done a couple of TikToks of the things I've seen, so please go and follow us there. Invincible's so good. If you guys don't watch it, just watch it. It's amazing.
Am I right in thinking Invincible is in the same universe as something else?
I don't...
Or have I got that? If I'm thinking of something completely different.
Believe it is. I think you might be thinking of maybe The Boys and Generation V.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Invincible's, it's an animated show, very classic US, remember old Batman and Justice League cartoons? It's very akin to that, but way more gory, but it's just fantastic. I saw Captain America Brave New World, Waiting for Chandler to see it, see what he thinks in comparison to what I spoke about in our TikTok. I thought it was a fine film.
I've not even watched your TikTok just because I'm like, I don't want to get any spoilers. You say something about an actor, and I'm like, I don't want to know. I want to go in blind.
I just said there's a poor performance, but I think most of the performances from the core cast is really, really good. But the film overall was just fine. It was good. It could have been great. That was the annoying thing. There's so many things they could have touched on, given the whole thing of it being
source
Captain
material.
America. Well, it's the source material, but it'd be also being a black Captain America and like a president like General Ross. Like that's surely you can go somewhere with that. Also, given the state of the world, you could maybe make some pointers there. Like Daredevil's doing it with Fisk and Daredevil in that show. They're doing it better. So I'm annoyed they didn't do that, but it's fine. And then I started, and I've seen loads of episodes before, but never started it. Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
You've only just started it. Oh, it's Always Sunny.
That's fine though. That's fine that you've just started it.
I've seen loads of episodes before because my partner's watched it, and I've jumped in and I've seen like random ones, and I always find it hilarious, but I've never committed.
You see,
I can't believe it was greenlit. That pilot episode. I was like, okay, if it wasn't 2006, there's no way that gets past the pilot.
I love that you watch it like a dad though, where you're sat there going, "Oh, they've done that. They can't do that. He can't say that about him there. That's terrible."
They flirt a line, but I don't think they're ever like offensive. Maybe
no, they do cross the line.
Yeah. There's no blurring of lines. They cross the line.
There's something in the first episode where I was like, "Holy shit!"
But the thing about It's Always Sunny, I remember I watched like I think this would have been in like 2014 or 15 when there was like 6 seasons out or whatever.
Probably more. It came out in 2006.
Whatever. I watched like 5 seasons in a week when I was ill, and I remember just thinking, "Oh my god, I'm a terrible person for laughing at these guys." And then I had to stop watching it because I just felt so bad about myself. So then I like picked it back up like 5 years later, and then I've carried on through, and I think I'm like watched up to like series 12 or 13. But you go through periods with it. I think you like love it and you binge it all the time, and then you stop for a bit, and then you go again. But there are some like peaks and troughs in the later seasons. There are some like seasons that are amazing, and then there are some seasons that aren't as good, and it's just quite peak and trophy, whatever the word I'm looking for.
If the first 3-5 episodes they cover underage drinking, homophobia, racism, and paedophilia.
Great, isn't it?
I say cover. I don't mean in the sense of these are bad things. No, they basically nearly perform all those things.
I think they do, don't they? Don't they give beers to children? Try and get the children into the bar.
They give beers to children. They turn the bar into a gay club, which to be honest, they're happy about until it gets a bit too much. One of them says the N-word, which is horrendous. I feel like they didn't need to do that.
The funniest thing is Danny DeVito's not even in it yet at this point.
Yeah.
and then they're also they're dating. 2 of them start briefly dating 18-year-olds, but minors, and they're all like 29, and it's so icky. But one of those characters is the woman that played Sif in Thor 1 and 2. I can't remember her name, but I was like, I recognise her. Oh, and then Colin, who's like burgles their place. He played Lex Luthor in Smallville. Spotting people, I never do that.
James was having fun.
James was having fun. Doing the DiCaprio like pointing at the screen. Yeah, really good, really funny. I'll keep up with that. And you, Chandler?
Me and my partner started watching Slow Horses. As I said in the last podcast, I was going to try and convince her to watch it, and she relented. But it's very good. Like we're only like 4 episodes in, and it's still quite slow. It's still slow at the moment, but I'm enjoying it. I'm like, I can't wait to see what happens, basically. And I'm very much like, next episode.
What's it about?
It's about like a group in MI5 who are like the shit group, essentially. Like they've all done something wrong in their MI5 career, and they can't sack them. So they send them to like the shit department, essentially, where they just do fuck all. And then something happens, they have to get involved. It's quite good. I wouldn't spoil it, but it's good.
What's it on? Where can you watch it?
It's on Apple TV.
Oh.
That's it, really. Not done much else. Been quite busy other than that. So yeah, that's it.
This is
quite a boring week for me, to be honest.
You're back at work, innit? After blowing up your knee, so
I am back at work after fucking my knee up. So yeah, been quite busy with that.
So can you please tidy up my house and tell me about this film with the housekeeping?
That was awful. So let's get the housekeeping out of the way. A Complete Unknown is set in 1961, where an unknown 19-year-old Bob Dylan arrives in New York City with his guitar and forges relationships with musical icons on his meteoric rise, culminating in a groundbreaking performance that reverberates around the world. This film got nominated for 8 Oscars, as Alex said in his intro. It has a 7.4 rating on IMDb, a 82% tomato meter rating, and a 95 popcorn meter rating.
The people got it right.
People got it right?
Actually, I think 95 is a bit too high.
I think 95 is I think 95 is very high.
Very high. I wouldn't go very high. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it up to about an hour and 45 minutes, and I was like, okay, come on, wrap this up. It's become quite formulaic at this point.
I'm not going to lie. Even though this is my pick, and I was actually I was really excited to watch it, because even though I'm not like a massive Bob Dylan fan, I love all his hits. You know what I mean? I love Bob Dylan. I love a lot of Bob Dylan music. I'm not a massive fan, but I love a lot of the music. And there's a line in the film where he's talking about folk music, and he says a good folk song should stand on its own with its guitar and the voice, and a good song should stand the test of time, right? And I think a lot of his music does stand the test of time. Like, we're still listening to it 60 years later, essentially.
I went into it not knowing any Bob Dylan songs, but knowing a lot of Bob Dylan songs, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's one of those people where it's like, I don't know what he's done. And then they come on and you play the music and you're like, oh, I know this. And that happened 4 times during the movie. There's no doubt he is a talent worthy of an exceptional biopic. Whether this is exceptional is something we'll get on to. But it's long. If you're going to watch it, be ready to sit down for nearly 2.5 hours.
There are longer films out there.
Of course there's longer films out there.
But this is still long.
Nah.
And it felt long to me.
Yes, I agree with James. I felt the length all the way through this film. Even within the first 20 minutes, I was like, this feels long.
Yeah.
And I don't think within the first 20 minutes of a film about an exceptional musician, you should say, do you know what? I'm already getting a bit tired.
Can I posit that that's because of Chalamet's portrayal of Dylan, where everything Bob Dylan does happens really slowly? It's like anything with Joaquin Phoenix. It's always going to happen really slowly, and he's going to mumble. So you're going to be like, what did he say? Hurry up.
That's a great link to get us on, because one of the things this film got nominated for was Best Sound. There are some incredible moments of like sound editing, sound mixing, whatever, when like Chalamet singing, because a lot of this, like most of the singing guitar playing is done live, like when they're recording.
Okay, I did wonder that. I wrote that. I wanted to ask you if it was done live.
They recorded a lot. They recorded pretty much all the tracks in a sound booth before they started filming as like a backup, essentially. They were like, we'll like most musicals, but this is essentially a musical, right? As any music biopic is, really.
Kind of. The music's not...
One could argue, but anyway.
You could argue, but this is music in performance. It's not music like to express what they just want to say in a scene. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Anyway. So they had all the tracks lined up, but Chalamet and Mangold, the director and the writer, basically turned up on set and was like, Timothy wants to do it when he's on set. He's practiced, and he does a great job of like trying to like all the guitar playing and, you know, trying to emulate Bob Dylan's voice, which I think he does a really good job in. So, and all that sound recording's done really, really well. But I was sat there going, throughout all the rest of the film, going, I can't actually hear what they're saying. My TV was turned up fucking loud. And I found like a lot of the dialogue was easily missed, I think.
I didn't notice that. I normally have subtitles on and I didn't for this. I didn't have that problem.
That might have been what you watched it on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just felt like the sound that I felt a lot of it was mumbling, and actually quite a lot of the dialogue could be missed. Which shows it was a weird thing. But on to like Chalamet's performance, I thought as his performance of the Dylan songs and of Dylan himself, who is, you know, quite a lot of his thing is like, when Bob Dylan was like coming out, he like made up a lot about himself, which is a theme in the movie about he becomes who himself, but then Dylan says, no, they changed into what they wanted to be, which is basically what Bob Dylan did. Bob Dylan he was Robert, you know, changed his name, made up a lot about his history throughout life and stuff like that, which isn't really touched upon in the movie that much. It's just sort of, you're just supposed to sort of get that.
You're led to believe it's true.
It's not that important, I don't think. That he made up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like the things that he's making up about himself is to be more of this musician, like mysterious guy. It's not like he's a serial killer and has just come to a new town and is like, my name's John Smith, I'll fix your toilet for you if you want. Don't ask me about the bodies.
Why is your hammer stained red? Oh, I don't know.
But yeah, I thought Chalamet's performance of him was very good.
I did as well. The singing, I was surprised at. Afterwards, I put on a couple of Bob Dylan songs to see how he imitated it, and he maybe a bit more vocal fry just from his natural cadence, but otherwise, I thought it was spot on. Really, really good. Also, didn't know he could sing like that. Like Timothée Chalamet is a very, very talented actor and performer. I remember when he was first gaining popularity, and I was like, okay, who is this guy? A lot of people were calling him a Victorian chimney sweeper looking kind of guy, because he is very
which
unique
he played as Willy Wonka.
Exactly. But he is really, really talented. And I watched the first Dune movie. I've watched this, and now I do want to see more of his performances because I think he's got incredible range. I watched a award acceptance he did, not for the Oscars, and he got a lot of heat for it on, I can't remember what show it is, but it was basically the US equivalent of Loose Women, I think.
The View.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he basically said like in sport, he's like, I want to be the best. I want to be the best at my craft, and this is a start, and I'm working towards that. I want to go down like the LeBrons. I want to be the best actor there is, and that more than I can be. And they go on there and they're saying things like, that's arrogant, outrageous, blah, blah, blah. And I watched the acceptance speech, and I'm like, no, he's just dedicated, hardworking, amazingly talented, and wants to go down as a legend in acting. And I think that's absolutely fair. And I didn't see any arrogance in his acceptance speech, which it easily could have been. And to be honest, this performance, I can't remember if the award was for this, but this this performance made me think, yeah, that, like you can do that. Like he can absolutely do that.
Yeah, but he was playing one of the most arrogant personalities the human race has ever seen that wasn't a dictator. I think his singing voice is fantastic. It's very close, I think, to Dylan. But also the guy, I can't remember his name, Boyd Hilbrook, who played Johnny Cash as well.
Mm-hmm.
Don't see too much of him. Doesn't sing very much. As good as you're going to get for Johnny Cash. I think it's close to Joaquin Phoenix when he played him in, I think it's called Walk the Line.
Yeah, I think, like James, I'm surprised. Did you ever see Wonka? Did you see his?
I haven't seen Wonka yet. It didn't appeal to me that much, but now I'm tempted.
It's very good. Chalamet is very, very good in his performance of Wonka as well. Musical, like actually a musical, and his performance is very good. Not as good as Gene Wilder's, but that's very hard to come by. I think maybe the arrogance is saying it's quite hard to say, oh, I'm the best actor because it's art and it's about interpretation and things like that. Whereas with sport, it's a bit different. So that's maybe where they're talking about where the arrogance comes from.
But I can list you some actors now which you would say, like Robert Downey Jr. in Oppenheimer, or your DiCaprio's, your Brad Pitt's,
or your Chandler Monks in Paddy Power casting adverts.
Anne Hathaway, these incredible actors. And then you could list other actors. Meryl Streep. I could list other actors that are like probably not going to get to those heights, but are good in their own right. And there's still levels to it. You know what I mean? And ultimately, they're going for awards, so there is some competition, even if those awards can sometimes be based upon a marketing budget.
But I think where they're coming from is his young age, where he's saying that where they sort of think, oh, you're arrogant. Like the names you reeled off there are
they've been around for a long time.
Top of the game. Yeah, like your Pitts, your DiCaprios. Yeah, they are already at the top of the game. Your McConaughey, obviously there's no one's going to get near McConaughey. Yeah. He is just the best actor that's ever lived, and that's okay.
All right.
Whereas Chalamet is, 15?
I think he's in his 20s, but yeah, he's...
But as someone else who got nominated for an Oscar in this film, Edward Norton, for his portrayal of Pete Seeger. Paul Seeger? Pete Seeger.
Pete Seeger, yeah.
I think he got... Genuinely, I don't think Edward Norton did anything of real note to be nominated for an Oscar. I thought his performance was quite...
So
I think, like as we said, I just...
It was Ed Norton.
Yeah, it's just Ed Norton on screen putting on a southern accent.
But I'm going to say something about it.
It's nothing. It was such a nothing performance.
Genuinely, I think that's why it's so good. I think that's why it's so good, because he acts...
Wait, before you say your point, I'm just gonna interpret of like the same with Monica Barbaro. Again, I just don't think there's anything there in those two performances to actually be nominated for Oscars.
So, but we'll get on to Monica Barbaro, however you pronounce them, who played.
Was that a disagreement with me, Alex, or agreement with me?
No, I don't think that she did anything incredible. Her singing, however, was beautiful. I don't think we touched on her during the singing, but her singing was incredible.
Similarly accurate as well.
Yeah, when all you're doing is pretty much singing, it's going to be good. Like, I think most of her acting was just this.
And swearing.
Swearing.
And just going, Bob, do you know what, Bob? I fucking hate you. You're a terrible person.
Looks wise, both Chalamet and Monica Barbaro, when you look at young Bob Dylan and especially young Joan Baez, my God, that I don't think visually there's more perfect castings in Hollywood right now that you could have done.
But you can't just say, do you know what, you deserve an Oscar because you look like the person
I'm just saying I think that was incredible casting. But for me, I said before we recorded, I wanted to touch on Monica Barbaro's performance. I thought it was good, but I think there was a better Best Supporting Actress nomination in this film, and that was Elle Fanning.
I did think Elle was very good.
She had to cover a larger range, really, for me than Monica Barbaro. She had to fall in love with Bob Dylan, and then they have their happy times, their honeymoon period, and we see their relationship through a long time. Now, she wasn't playing a real person, but basically everyone's confirmed that it's Susie Rotolo, who was his girlfriend at the time. He didn't want her real name to be in it, basically. But I thought she was really, really good, and there's a lot of subtlety to her performance, and I think you could read a lot from her without any script. Especially in her last scenes in the Newport Festival, sorry.
When she leaves.
When she leaves, yeah. And because she can't handle seeing Bob perform with Joan Baez, because he had an affair with her and she totally knows it, and she's very insecure about it, and she thought she was over it, thought maybe they could get back together, but she couldn't deal with it. And he seems to walk through her life like a hurricane when she's got her own stuff going on. You know, she was fighting for...
Nice reference.
I didn't mean to, but I'll take it. Fighting for rights to end segregation, doing a lot of charitable work. We're doing a lot of important stuff. I mean, this was around the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, time of segregation, Vietnam Wars mentioned.
It's a tumultuous time in American history.
Exactly. And she sounded like an incredible person. And then you had this edgy, broody, dickhead, artsy guy come through and wreck her life at times. And I think Elle Fanning just portrayed it so well, and I gutted that she wasn't nominated in place of Monica Barbaro.
I would kind of agree with all of that.
Did she not get any nomination?
Not in the Oscars, no.
Oh.
Which is ridiculous to me.
I agree. James, sorry, I cut you off. What were you going to say about Edward Norton's performance as well?
So my thoughts of Edward Norton's performance as Pete Seeger was that I thought Edward Norton, he's just great. And I think I believed his performance so much. I didn't feel
his love for folk music and his...
Yeah, but I just didn't...
But that's just Edward Norton. That's just Edward Norton being a fantastic actor.
But he's a normal guy with a normal family, and I believed his performance wholeheartedly. There are times where other actors maybe took me. I think there's moments where Timothée Chalamet and Bob Dylan maybe it'd be a bit too much. I think it's Dan Fogler as Albert Grossman.
Yeah.
That his agent, like publicist or manager or something, he was he looked and seemed a bit cliched to me. Whereas Edward Norton, I just thought was so believable without having ultimately to do anything exceptional. He wasn't tasked with doing anything outrageous in the movie, which would make you think he was amazing.
That might just been who Pete Seeger was, though. He's not an outrageous guy. He doesn't look like an outrageous guy. He just looks like an old man with a banjo.
And a nice family.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought up Dan Fogler, because I actually thought in a supporting role in a film like this, I thought Dan Fogler was very, very good. Like,
it's okay.
He plays the character... No, I disagree entirely with that. He's okay. I think he plays the character of that to a T. And if anyone's going to get nominated in a supporting role, it should have been him.
Nah.
Like, he brings the laughs when it should be. He brings the laughs when the film needs a bit of comic relief. And I think he plays that slimy, sort of I'm just here. I just want all the money sort of vibe of a manager, like especially when he's in the like very beginning of the movie when he's talking to Joan Baez and Joan's like, you need to sign with Columbia, you need to do this because they're Mount Rushmore, they're going to get you millions of dollars or whatever. And it's like he's the same with Bob Dylan when you see he started to manage Bob, when Bob starts to get famous. I think he actually plays that to a T, and he's the one that should be nominated for an Oscar. And Dan Fogler, again, he sort of plays that sort of role in a lot of films he's in. Like Fanboys, if you guys have never seen Fanboys, you need to watch that.
Never seen it. That's why we have this podcast.
You know, but I think he is great in this role, and I think he's the one that should actually be nominated for an Oscar.
I agree and disagree with both of you.
Okay. What a way to play the middle line.
I think there's not an ounce of fat on any line that he says. I think he's perfect. Don't quite think he should have been nominated for an Oscar. He's good, like he's not. He didn't steal the show.
Well, I don't know. I think if you're going to nominate, I think his performance is better than Edward Norton's, for instance. So
No,
Absolutely not. No way.
I've got. Do you know what? I've had some really controversial opinions in the past Oscar ones. Can't wait for an aura.
For me, like Dan Fogler was playing quite a cliche role that we've seen 100,000 times.
Yeah, but maybe that was just the role of a manager in the 50s. You don't.
I'm not saying that's a problem. Like, I'm not saying that as a problem.
You
but
are
I'm just
saying it's a problem. That's why you're marking him down.
No, but we're talking about Oscar noms. Like Oscar noms. So in that respect, I'm not saying his performance was bad, because it wasn't. It was good. And I loved it when he hit that guy who was angry.
I didn't like that.
Who ran the folk festival at Newport and was really angry that Bob Dylan didn't perform any folk music. And because, once again, Bob Dylan rolling through like a hurricane to tear everything down because he's a bit of an arse.
The funniest thing is, Hurricane's never even fucking played throughout the movie.
No, but a girl from the North Country Fair is played about 7 times. They get bored of the movie and they just start playing that song for no reason.
Can we just briefly touch on, just so we cover all the nominations, Best Achievement in Costume Design. They dressed nice.
Sure.
Everyone wore nice 50s suits. I kind of had a moment.
60s counterculture outfits.
Yeah, I had like a moment of like a dad where I was like, everyone used to wear suits. Why don't people wear suits anymore? They probably do. I'm just not around any of these people.
I did find
people who have proper jobs and actually maybe contribute slightly to society and its downfall, probably in finance. They wear suits.
Yeah.
Downfall,
yeah, exactly.
I did realise.
Whereas the people who bring joy in shit podcasts and shit telly, the three of us don't wear suits.
We wear band t-shirts.
I did realise at the end that when Chalamet was wearing, basically he'd gone to his full edgy, Bob Dylan was at full edgy, I'm an artist phase. Black roll neck or turtleneck jumper, black leather jacket, sunglasses, big bouffant hair, black skinny jeans, slacks, trousers, whatever, and boots, was basically one of my friends I grew up with. I realised he must have styled himself on Bob Dylan through our entire teenage years, and I didn't even notice. And he at school, bless him, lovely guy, but he definitely portrayed himself as that artsy guy in drama and could do a sing a bit. Nah, he's a lovely bloke. But he was definitely like that broody, artsy guy. And now I realise, I reckon it's all based on Bob Dylan.
He was sat in maths every lesson, was like, I just want to talk about Pythagoras.
Oh, I need your character skits, Alex.
That was a terrible Bob Dylan. For some reason, it descended into the guy from...
Audience, call to action. We need Alex to do TikToks. Bully him. Because listen, this is the guy. We say, me and Chandler are wholly unlikable, and Alex holds us all together. Yeah, he needs to do TikToks because they would slap.
I'll fight TikTok virgins any day.
Now we've discussed 5 of the Oscar nominations. Let's get into the big 3: directing, picture, and screenplay. I think that this film deserved none of those 3 nominations. I genuinely think, as we said, the only one it possibly deserves is sound and Chalamet. But going into these 3, as I was watching the film, I was actually sat watching it with my partner's mum for some reason, but anyway.
Very, very wholesome.
20 minutes in, me and her were basically just like, this film is really fucking slow.
Yeah.
As we said before, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I didn't really think of anything as like exciting or gripping me or compelling me to actually finish the film until like an hour in. Really? And I also think about the screenplay that all of like some of the character motivation just isn't there. Like, it's not really like told to you in a coherent way of like, oh, you know, Elle Fanning character is like,
there's little story, right?
Elle Fanning's character is like not in love with him anymore, or this or that. It's very like, it's this and then that, and then it's just like, but no, like, it's like, here's a scene with no actually like coherent storyline throughout his life.
Yeah, he goes from being a dick to not being a dick to being a dick to not being a dick to writing a song to being a dick to not being a dick to writing a song, and it just
His journey through the film is pretentious, artsy kid who's clearly very talented and a bit of a knob, but you see his good side. Visiting one of his heroes in Woody Guthrie in hospital, who's suffering from Huntington's disease and has diagnosed with schizophrenia and other ailments. And he goes visits him. He's pretty non-verbal.
Yeah, that's not that again. That's not said in the film. That's two things at the start of the film that aren't actually told to you. What he's dying of. Huntington's is a very well-known disease.
Yeah, you don't need to know. You just need to know that he's dying.
Yeah,
like, it's irrelevant to if you know it or not.
Was it understood in the 50s?
Yeah, I think during his diagnosis, again, you keep saying 50s. This is set in the 60s.
All right, early 60s.
Yeah, I think actually during his diagnosis, during like when he started showing symptoms, like Huntington's was discovered. I remember reading. And the other thing as well, why the hell is Pete Seeger in court as well at the beginning?
Something to do with basically like treason, like from what he said in the song.
He was in court for a contempt of Congress, I believe, which is basically being a damn commie.
Yeah, okay, fine. He was like trying to be blacklisted or something, but just it's things like that can tell you a coherent story. Like I've said before in the podcast, like no matter how long a film is or what the film is about, it has to tell you a concise story in a compelling way.
But this is a biopic.
Yeah, but it's still a story.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily going to have your traditional act structures as much as you would get from Hollywood. It's just events in Bob Dylan's life.
No, but that's why you go through someone's life trying to find it. Yeah, you go through someone's life trying to find that 3-act structure.
But again, in a biopic, no matter what biopic it is, things are dramatized for purposes. For things are made up or like slightly changed for dramatic purposes, right? And they do this in this film, like 100%.
I like how it's bookended by.
I can agree with that.
With the visits to Guthrie, and I think that tells us a lot about Bob Dylan.
Predictable,
in a way. But yes, it's predictable, but it tells us a lot about Bob Dylan. And I think Bob Dylan only shows true respect to fellow talents in his field.
Yes.
He does not give a shit about anyone else, whether that is his manager or anyone dealing with that folk festival. Majority of his partners, really only Sylvie, Elle Fanning, impressed him. He only used Joan Baez as he thought her music was an oil painting in dentist off rooms. Lacking true substance, and she's trying too hard. He didn't respect her music that much, so like that, as we see his sweet side visiting Woody Guthrie, but yeah, it was just further proof to me, and I think that was a nice way to show ultimately Bob Dylan's lack of respect for people, unless they're talented in his field, and you can kind of judge him and all his relationships through that lens. And I think that was on direction. I think that's really nice.
You can see that though in that very last scene where they play the electric set at the folk festival, and he only goes back on stage to play the acoustic song when Johnny Cash is like, "Here you go, get back out there." And even at the start of the film, when he goes to see Guthrie, that you could still say that's a bit of ego. He wants to go see him, sit with him, and be like, "I wrote this song. I'm going to play it for you. You can't go anywhere. I'm going to play it for you."
But it was sad. The words of the song at the end to Woody Guthrie, basically saying goodbye. This is the last time I'll see you, because Bobby Guthrie passed away not long after. That was brutal.
I think at the beginning of the film, he's definitely just looking for validation from one of his heroes.
Yeah.
I don't and respect going the other way. And I think you're right, James. He does only show respect to I think he only shows respect to two characters.
Mm-hmm.
He shows respect to Rudy Guthrie and he shows respect to Johnny Cash, and that's it. I don't think he really shows respect
I think he does to Pete
I don't think he shows
Seeger
respect
up
to
until
Joan.
a point.
No.
And I think he does at times to Sylvie, like Elle Fanning's character.
I don't think he shows respect to Sylvie.
Not all the time.
He shows respect to Pete in the way of like how can he use Pete to further his career? Not a respect of actually respecting.
No, when he goes to the cocktail party and all the suits are there, he keeps getting annoyed by people coming up to him and being like, "Great music." He's like, yeah, great music. And then when he sees Pete, he actually gets excited to see Pete. He's happy to see that someone's there that knows him.
Well, no, I think maybe just because he knows it's another musician.
Or potentially, yeah.
The only time his respect really goes for Pete is at the end of in the Newport Festival, the final time we're there when he performs the electric set. That's the only time he shows kind of any kind of contempt for Pete's opinion. Because he's very much I want to do what I want and kind of take down folk.
So while we're on that point, so this whole film is based upon that really famous set at the Newport Folk Festival in '65, him going electric, which was seen as like by his core fan base as betrayal.
Yeah.
Right? You know, being shouted Judas from the crowd. Right? How do you think that this film portrays that story of essentially what I feel as the perils of being famous,
being pigeonholed into your genre typecast?
Yeah, exactly, being typecast. How do you think the film portrays those two things?
Not well.
Was he the first person to step outside of his genre, though? Was he the first person to take like a left? Like, obviously after this you get like Bowie and like Ziggy Stardust and all that. But was he the first person till this point to be like, I'm doing this and now I'm doing this and everyone should enjoy it?
I don't know. I wasn't really around in the 60s to say with any real authority, but knowing from other biopics, like there's a bit in Walk the Line about Johnny Cash, where near the end of Johnny Cash's big thing in the 60s, they have a meeting about going electric with Johnny Cash. And they go, everyone's going electric now. And they met like the Beatles or some other bands. And then at the end he goes, even Dylan's electric. And Johnny Cash sticks to his guns and goes, no, I play the acoustic basically. And I play country and stuff. So I'm not sure. I can't speak to that because I don't have any authority to do. I don't have any authority on movies anyway. But
there's a few moments when I think it shows it well, but I think it doesn't. I don't think it's obvious. So if you're just the average film goer, you might not see the moments. And I'm having to think about the moments. The movie portrays him as always trying to write different music. He listens to everything, and he doesn't just do folk music, and he writes all types of music. And there's a moment I think that's quite key with Electrics. It is mentioned a couple times, but there's the first point is he wants to write his own stuff. He does a poor album that kind of failed of covers, which he never wanted to do. People are like, everyone around him, except for the label, were going, write your own music. And he's like, well, I want to. So that's where he kind of like, I think that's a big moment in his character where he's like, I'm going to force through and do what I want because what I think is right. So that kind of leads you to that kind of foreshadows the end in Newport. There's the moment with Bobby, Bobby Newirth, where he meets him and then ends up going to his show after he basically breaks up with Becca, who they've just met and she said she loves him. And he's like, that's really weird. And he was right. Yeah. That is really weird. I
think that's another thing of
he loves that show.
I think that's another thing of like the perils of fame.
Yeah,
because people just want to meet you and love you straight away, which he didn't. When you think about it, mental.
That's where he showed contempt for fans quite a lot of the time. And I think that's fair for artists to get frustrated about. But again, I'm always in the standpoint of you need to show respect to your fans because you wouldn't be where you are without them.
And that's also that. But that is Bob Dylan, though. That is Bob Dylan. He wanted to be famous, but then didn't want to be famous.
Yeah, but like
on that thing of, just before you go, James, on that thing, I think there's a fine line with fandom, isn't there?
Yeah, of course.
There's like the weird thing of like, you know, I love this artist and I want to be, you know, I love this person, I love this artist, I love what they give to the world of art or music or whatever it is, However, there is a fine line into crossing of going, okay, I'm now, not very well person who's obsessed with someone instead of just being an amazing fan.
It's the perils of a parasocial relationship. There's two big examples in the press. I mean, very recently. I mean, there's loads, obviously, but at the moment there's Emma Raducanu, her stalker, showing up to a tennis match. And there's the singer-performer Lisa from K-pop group Blackpink, where she had a stalker. I don't know if they tried to break into her house or whatever, but she had a stalker, and how terrifying that is, regardless, when you're a celebrity, because stalking often leads to murders.
Bad things.
Yeah, so that I think there is a fine line, absolutely. And obviously it's not the performer's not the problem. Bob Dylan, however, I think, for the most part, shows contempt for his fans, at least in this film, portrayed in the entire time. But anyway, what was I said back on the main point of Neweth, that on the Electric, that's another moment in the film where he sees them performing and he's like, wow. And then he's like, Bobby Neweth's with him all the time then.
Yeah.
And, but I do think you're right, Chandler, in that it's not like it could have been the core facet of the story, and it's not in the screenplay.
But it's kind of supposed to be. The whole thing is leading up to him going electric. I do think that the scene where he goes to the party with all the music execs, going into him going to see that band play, that sequence I do think is kind of the best one in the film.
Okay. Because
I think those two scenes actually like going into one another, I think they show sort of what the film's about. Like, as I said, like it's about an artist sort of wanting to go his own way, like, but he's typecast, he's pigeonholed as something else, and then the perils of fame. Like he goes to a party with people he knows, like people he works with, but all they want to do is all they see him as is a performing monkey. They're like, when's Bob going to play? I've told everyone you're going to play, so do it for me. Play music for me. Like, do it now, right? It's like it's akin to seeing a comedian and just going, tell me a joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's shown really well in the scene where Pete Seeger's got his educational TV show, where Bob didn't show up, but then he actually did in the end, and he got a singer to replace him. I can't remember, Jesse.
But that's slightly different though.
He's been brought in to perform.
Yeah, so he's been brought into a TV show to perform. He had no knowledge of going to this party that he would perform. Yeah. He's going to a party because he's been invited, not to perform.
But he was late to the educational show, and he didn't want to. Like when he said, like, "Come on," and Jesse Moffat is like, "Come on, perform," because Jesse Moffat's really arrogant. He's on this show for kids, and then he's getting really angry about it, and he's drinking hard liquor and stuff. Like the guy's outrageous.
Yeah.
And but then he's like, "Come on, Bob, come on," and then Bob's like, "I won't use your guitar," and I allude that to more him not wanting to play because he's not. Again, it's a respect thing because he's used.
I think guitar. That's his.
I think it's respect. I think it's more. Yeah, respect.
That's his understanding that he wasn't meant to be there. They've brought in a replacement. He's turned up. The replacement's there. The show's going quite well. He's like, I don't really want to interrupt what you guys are doing. But then when he gives him his guitar and he's like, I don't know, you've been brought here to perform. And then he's like, if I start playing this and singing, I will show you up, big man.
I did like how Jesse Moffat's like, that's my own little thing, yeah. And Bob's like, I got a microscope, I know what you did. He's like, go on then, and he does it, and then they all jam together, and that was a really fun,
I think that's a really nice moment.
Yeah.
But the thing, what I was going to say is, so that scene at the party with the music execs, like, he's being brought there to just be a performer monkey, and then it moves on into the scene of he ditches the girl he's with, goes to see another performance.
The Irish bar.
And again, it's this, and it's that scene of like the perils of fame and, just wanting to enjoy art for art's sake. Like he's there, he's not walked into the bar and gone, I'm Bob Dylan. You must talk to me, don't concentrate on the band. He's walked in, tried to go into a corner and just enjoy the music.
Oh, yeah.
And again, it's that fine line that people have crossed. Like they notice Bob Dylan, everyone stops listening to the live performance that's there and just want to be with Bob. And then the other thing as well, like, they cross that line of, why aren't you saying hello to my girlfriend? Don't tell them to go away. And the guy,
it was him snatching
the guy ends up punching him.
The girl that took the glasses off his face. Like, why the fuck are you taking the glasses off? Like, again, I think Bob Dylan is a bit of a prick.
That's 60s fame though, isn't it? That is all the girls screaming running after the Beatles, That is that is just what fame was. I don't think if it happened now, if like, I don't know, Dave Grohl was in a bar, I would like to imagine that someone wouldn't just point at him and go, Dave Grohl, and then just try and grab things from him. I would like to think that we have a bit more respect, I guess, now because there are more celebrities. But
the fact the boyfriend punched him was nuts. But I do think you make a great point, and I do think there's a couple instances in our lifetime of those, and that is Bieber fever when he first broke through, and him with the perils of fame and the struggles he went through. One Direction, early days of One Direction, especially, and I think now, like absolute diehard fandoms, like Taylor Swift's fandoms, absolutely mental fandoms at times, diehards, and then also
I'll tell my two nieces that.
But then there's like fans of groups like making up rumors and bullshit based upon what they see on stage and in mid-performance and how someone was feeling, and maybe did someone cry or did they not, and then they go mental and they just bully them. And it does still exist. It's just in different places, and I think it's in different ways.
Maybe. Yeah, I would say that's quite normal from like tabloids. Tabloids been doing that for years, haven't they?
It's making shit on social media, which we see it with footballers as well.
But recently, I don't want to blow my own trumpet here. I was walking through Hammersmith. I walked past the great fellow podcaster Richard Osmond. I saw him. It's very difficult to miss. He's about 10 foot tall. I saw him. He was on the phone. I wanted to say hi. Didn't want to be a dick because he was on the phone. So it was just like, just keep myself to myself then.
Yeah. But I just going back to the actual film here and what we're talking about, I think the ultimate thing that the film is trying to get across to you is like an artist who wants to go his own way. You know, he's become famous. He wants to do it as he now wants to change slightly what he is as an artist. So yeah, but I think that the film only really gets that sort of point across in these two scenes and maybe the last scene. But as a screenplay as a whole, I don't think it's as a screenplay as a whole and the direction of the whole film, I don't think it's actually done very well, given the fact that the film is two and a half hours long nearly. If the film was an hour and a half, you could sort of get away with that in terms of at least it's fucking quick and it's going through his life fucking quickly.
I think 2 hours would have been good.
Yeah, maybe. But because the film's dragged out and long, it doesn't feel like a good story. It doesn't feel like it's going to get the point across. Do you know what I mean?
I think there's certain segments that could have been cut, but those are like the 7 minutes where it's, for example, when he's, what song is it? Like a Rolling Stone, where he's going electric and he's in the studio.
What, right at the end?
Yeah.
When he's singing? Okay, fine.
No, yeah, someone comes in, plays the what do you call it? Synth.
Keyboards.
Yeah,
but that was Al Cooper.
Like you probably could have left that out.
It's not just that's not just a nobody. That was Al Cooper. And like, look here.
Yeah, but you could have left that scene out.
You could have. I'm like quite impressed of all the names, and I think it's good that they got those in and who Bob Dylan influenced, because it shows who influenced him and then thus the next generation he influences. And like, look, I listen to mostly like soul, R&B, hip hop, most modern stuff. This is not my type of music. I know who Al Cooper was. I was like, oh shit. But yeah, I know what you mean. It could have been shorter.
The message I get from primarily from this film, and I think it's only said in one line, but it's now because this film is talking about a person that started over 60 years ago and about that music, that, as James, you said right at the beginning, I didn't know who Bob Dylan was, but I knew all his music. Every song that's played, you just know. And I think even though he goes electric at the end, the songs that he performs as an electric musician are still folk in their way of they stand the test of time. Like, people still cover those songs now. And I think that is more the story that they should have tried to get across, more than the perils of fame or, you know, an artist being pigeonholed, because that's kind of been done. It's kind of been done before.
No, but Bob Dylan is famously a dick. You can't leave out that he is not a dick. You have to keep it. Yeah. But on that line of him doing folk music going into electric, there's a really good bit in the film where I think it's the festival organizer runs out to him at the pool while he's walking off and he's like, do you even remember folk music? And he's like, no, what's that? Why don't you sing me something? And it's so good because it's Bob's arrogance mixed in with this guy who's like, please stop fucking up my thing.
I liked that because I reckon like if that guy gave in a little bit, if that guy gave in and let Bob do one electric song or two, and he probably would have played more folk. But the fact that the guy was such a dick about it probably led Bob to being like, "Fine, I'll be a prick as well."
Can I just cover one thing on that? The final scene of the film where they're at the folk festival. Pete Seeger is portrayed as hating that performance in the film by Ed Norton. In reality, Pete Seeger wasn't against Dylan going electric. He actually supported Dylan going electric. The thing that he hated during the show was that the PA system they had couldn't handle his electric music. So
yeah, the distorting sound.
Yeah, he is overheard as saying, if I could cut these cables, I would right now. People interpreted that as he hates it. He was actually thinking, this sounds shit. These people hate this music because it sounds shit.
Yeah. And as someone who, as the three of us who work in broadcast, there's a lot to be said about making sure the sound is correct.
I quite like that because I didn't get the idea that Pete was ever fully against it, as you say, but because he wasn't like the other guy who ran the Newport Festival. No. He wasn't like, we do folk. It's you, a guitar, harmonica, blah, blah, blah. That's it. Pete kind of was like, this festival has a theme. Our audience who we're selling tickets for have an expectation, and that's ultimately who we're doing this for. We're not doing it to stroke the egos of the performers. And I like now knowing that because I think it justifies not justifies, but it kind of explains a lot more of what Pete Seeger was doing then and there. And I wish they kind of like made it a bit more obvious. But I think if you read into what Pete was actually doing, I think it works. To be honest, I think it works.
But then I think the question becomes like, again, as we said, do musicians make their music for themselves or do they make it for their fans?
I think it's got to be both.
Because I think at this point, Bob is portrayed in the film to be making music for himself the whole time, really. I don't think there's any point where he goes, I want to make that because it's going to make me money. It's more like I'm an amazing songwriter and I'm just going to write songs for the fun of it and I want to perform those to people for myself, essentially.
I have no doubt that he wants to make stuff to be for creative fulfillment. I don't. Like, at the start, he wants people to hear it, but I think most of it is for him.
And coming towards that final scene, what did you guys think of how that actual folk festival scene is portrayed as him when the whole film is leading up to him going electric? Like the film was originally going to be called Going Electric. So how did you guys feel that scene came across? Did you think it was done well? Do you think it wasn't?
As I've said, the slight historical inaccuracy aside, it's covered very well. The whole, you see the relationship between him and Johnny Cash, where Cash is sort of the only person who can control him in that moment. Not it's not really a breakdown with Pete Seeger and his wife in that relationship. He's just sort of at the point where his arrogance has slightly overtaken him a little bit. But it does come back down again, though, when he speaks to Toshi, Pete's wife. He is like, she's like, don't do this. He's like, was a bit of a dick there.
I really like, just going off, sorry, James, just going off what Alex said about one thing I love in this film, and I think it maybe my favourite bit is how, as I said before, he shows respect to two people, Woody Guthrie and Johnny Cash. I love how his relationship with Johnny Cash is portrayed. Oh, yeah. I think it's done so well in terms of how two people who are massively famous and massively talented and at the same time massively flawed respect each other so much, and how their friendship comes across, and in real life they were friends right up until Johnny Cash passed away. Like they respected each other so well, and I love that portrayal of just two great musicians who just respect each other and just want to be able to talk about each other's processes. And just enjoy each other's music. And Alex said, I do enjoy the bit in the scene where Johnny's like, okay, you've done that for yourself now. You've gone electric for yourself. Here's your acoustic.
Do it.
Go perform what these people want to hear. Yeah, exactly.
I think I love how they were pen pals. That was fun. And Johnny Cash saying, your record is my finest possession. I was like, wow, Johnny Cash saying that. Crazy. But on Bob Dylan's character, and we've touched on respect a lot, and his relationships, he respects people less who have shown him a lot of good than Johnny Cash, who he sees hammered, trying to get in his car, crashed twice, and ultimately be being horrific. Like, it's played off quite comically. And I feel like that is in a way to show that Bob doesn't really care. Because the only thing Bob cares about, and in regards to Johnny Cash, is musical talent and his career. Bob respects him more knowing that he's a drunk driver going to crash into two cars trying to get out of a parking space than people around him that have shown him nothing but goodwill.
Does he not think of Cash, though, as a lost soul? I reckon...
Like himself.
I reckon he thinks he's lost. He's not really, but because he knows exactly what he is. But he can lie to him, like we said earlier. He was just telling himself lies all the time. If you want to make yourself dark and mysterious, you tell yourself you're a lost soul. That's probably what he told himself. He was like, I don't know where I'm going. Whereas in his head, he's going, I know exactly where I'm going. I'm going to write 55 albums. It'd be amazing.
That blew my mind. 55 albums blew my mind. Absolutely. That's too many albums.
And as you said at the end of the film, like, he knows exactly who he is because he's, as you said, he meets Woody again, tells him goodbye. And it's also him saying goodbye to his hero, goodbye to folk. I'm going to go my own way. And, goes off and, as you say, write 55 albums and become one of the best-selling musicians, most acclaimed, most anything superlative you want to say about him. And as you say, I think the message of the movie should have been how a great musician just stands the test of time. As I said to you before, as James, you summed it up, as I've said twice now already. You didn't know who he was, but you know all his music.
Yeah. It's important to say, and I think that this film does, I know you asked us, did it hit on this note as much as it could have, but it's worth remembering that as much as he's a dick, and it often is the case that these creatives are pricks, but Bob Dylan was a genre-bending innovator. But that's, he wasn't just going electric. He wasn't emulating someone else. I think, and I do think it alludes to it in the film.
He was doing his own thing.
Yeah, but it also felt like he was building upon folk music. And I don't necessarily know if in his head he thought he was leaving folk behind, or he just was expanding, creating genre bending, as it says.
I think he was leaving everyone's image of him as a folk musician behind. And as you said, he was going to go on and, as they say in the film, folk is, it has its values. Is conservative the right word? Like, doesn't want to progress. It's all about the history. It's all about history. It's all about the past. Traditional. Thank you.
Yeah.
He wanted to move folk forward. He wanted to genre bend. He as you said, he listened to everything and he wants to incorporate everything into his music, which I think is the right thing to do. I hate when I'm very much against people who say, I listen to R&B, I listen to soul, and that's it. I don't listen to anything else.
Wow.
That wasn't a dig at you, James.
Wow.
I have quite...
Those are different genres, but fun.
I have quite an eclectic music taste. As I love musicals, I love punk, I love metal, I love anything that is good music. So I think that's what Bob Dylan was trying to portray, of like, I'm just going to make music for myself, and I'm amazing, so it's going to be good music, whatever it is, whether it's acoustic, folk, or electric, essentially.
I mean, as a country music fan, that has happened to country music in the past 10, 15 years. It's gone from being Dolly Parton talking about a woman stealing a man and Johnny Cash saying, I once shot a man on cocaine, to people with just guitars saying, I got a big ass truck, I'm gonna fuck your bitch. It has changed so much from, there are still people who play the traditional stuff where it's like, I'm gonna marry this woman and become a builder. There's still people who do that, but it's become a lot more showmanship, and that's probably what folk music was going through then. And even now with folk music, Mumford and Sons, everyone loves to hate them. They're the Nickelback of folk music, but they're everywhere.
There's some Mumford and Sons and shit. We've, as I said, we've talked about Bob Dylan being a dick this entire film, but he is a dick. Not just he is a dick, but was super influential in music. But he was also fighting the good fight, as it were. We mentioned it was a tumultuous time in America. And the world, Cuban Missile Crisis, Vietnam War, and the fight to end segregation. And through Sylvie and his own feelings, he was heavily involved in that. They mentioned that Malcolm X was shot and JF Kennedy, both assassinated.
Do you remember the date that JFK? They said the date. Did you?
I can't remember, no.
November 22nd, 1963. Do you know why I know that?
Why?
Doctor Who premiered the next day.
But anyway, he performed.
Terrible news from America. The president has died. However, Daleks.
He performed at the big.
They actually repeated the first episode of Doctor Who the next week because of the news of JFK. Carry on.
He also performed at the his songs. If you listen to the lyrics in his songs, it's often about. It's very relevant to today. You know, fighting the man, as it were, and stuff. But he had songs about racial injustice and the fear of nuclear war. But he performed at the big segregation rally in Washington. I can't find the name of it.
That is portrayed in the film. That is portrayed in the film. And the CGI on it is terrible.
Yeah, that's why it didn't win Best Oscar for CGI. That was horrendous, wasn't it? And I saw that took me right out of it. I was watching a nice movie. Then that happened. I was like, I'm not watching a movie anymore. This is strange.
But Bob Dylan was progressive in his music and all aspects of his life. And being a white man in the 1960s fighting to end segregation was really huge. And I asked my nan what it was like at that time, because she was about 14 when the Cuban Missile Crisis was going on as such, and just she talked to me about just how fearful it was. And she was in the UK, but just how everyone was petrified. And they show the hysteria really well that I didn't even think about. People running in the streets thinking the bombs are going to go off and trying to get home. Yeah,
nuclear war would affect everyone.
Yes, of course. But I thought I really liked that little scene in the film where Jones walking through the street and everyone's trying to run away and they don't know what's going to happen. Because I didn't know. I just thought it was all the Cold War. I didn't think about the hysteria of the people. I just thought of politicians.
No, the Cuban Missile Crisis was 24 hours from disaster. But when I saw people running away, I was like, where are you running from for a nuclear missile? Where are you going? They were like, I got to get out of New York. Where? New Jersey? You think that's not going to get you?
So, Alex, what's your overall take on the film?
I love a biopic. I really like them. I think up there with war movies, they come in a very close second. They're basically hugging on the top step of the podium, I would say. 1 foot off. I really enjoyed the film. I love biopics. Said for the third time. I don't care how long it is, because there's generally only one biopic, unless you are like Jesus, where you get one a year. So I don't mind that it's 2.5 hours long, because I want to know as much about the person as possible. I really enjoyed the Elvis one that Austin Butler did, and especially because he now sounds like Elvis because of it.
Oh yeah, it ruined that man's voice.
He sounds fantastic. He sounds, well, maybe he looks beautiful, and now he sounds incredible.
Yeah,
just improves. Anyway, I hope that doesn't happen to Timothée Chalamet. Welcome to Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory 2. I think should he have won an Oscar for Best Actors, Dylan? I honestly, I think he could have. If he'd won it, I wouldn't have been surprised. I think he got his mannerisms, I think he's got his voice, his singing, pretty much down to a T. I think he lost to Adrian Brody, won it for The Brutalist, and up against Ralph Fiennes in Conclave. So he's losing to some big names. As we said earlier, he's not quite there yet. He'll probably get there eventually. I think it covers beautifully how much of a dick Dylan is. And I've said before, there's a fine line between allowing brilliance to flourish and finding the point where you just tell someone you're a dick. Stop doing it. You're not very good. You're just being a dick. And sometimes some people have to suffer to let us listen to some really good music. I think those people were the film festival people and Sylvie Russo.
Sylvie.
Yeah.
Of course, Sylvie, man.
But it was a bare bones film. It showed he was a dick. It showed all the people around him. It showed his journey from acoustic to electric beautifully. However, knowing that he wanted his girlfriend's name changed in the script tells me he saw the script or had some way of control over it. Could it be worse? Maybe. But overall, very good.
James?
Yeah, I enjoyed the film. I did, unlike Alex, I do think it was too long. It did drag a little bit for me by about an hour and 2 hours, let's say. I thought that like a bit hour and 50. I thought it could have wrapped up.
Are you saying it should have been 30 minutes long, or are you saying that at an hour and 50 it should have ended?
It should have ended about 25, 30 minutes sooner.
All right, okay.
But
Okay.
Yeah.
James just wants to review short films.
I didn't expect it to be 2.5 hours, and it did mess up my day a little bit. Didn't matter in the end. We didn't record. My setup was broken. Anyway, yeah, I think I wouldn't have been angry if Timothée Chalamet won best performance in a leading role. I think he was excellent. Just researching this, watching some interviews with Bob Dylan, especially listening to some of his music. Wow. Like, one, I didn't know Timothée Chalamet had that talent of singing. And two, I think he imitated it really, really, really well. His performance has been written off by some, and I think this is always will always be the stick to beat someone with, beat an actor with when it comes to biopic, and that ultimately his performance is an imitation. And people have written that off, and in the Guardian review, it says no more. People are saying it's no more than a feat of imitation. But they mention other Bob Dylan performances of actors, and how, this is the best. Like, Timothée Chalamet's performance is the best. I completely believed his performance. I didn't feel like I was watching Timothée Chalamet, and I wouldn't been absolutely fine if he won Best Actor. In terms of the other Oscars, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it should have won Best Screenplay. I liked the direction. I thought it was a very beautiful film. I thought it looked incredible. I'm shocked that Elle Fanning wasn't. I'm shocked that Elle Fanning wasn't nominated for Best Supporting Role over Monica Barbaro. Not to say her performance was bad; it was good, but Elle Fanning was just excellent. In terms of screenplay, I felt like this film was quite formulaic. I found it was Bob Dylan shows up somewhere, does a performance, goes to a girlfriend, goes to their house or his house, has sex, picks up a guitar and writes some acoustic music, writes some music in acoustic, rinse and repeat 6 times. It happens over and over and over again. And I was like, okay, yeah, he's in someone's house and he's done it on his own with a guitar. Okay, yeah, he's with another girl now and he's having a shag. Okay, he's now at a live performance, whether he's performing or recording music again. And I mean, I'm sure that was the life, I'm sure that's an accurate depiction, but it just became a little bit monotonous for me after you've seen it 5 times. But still, really good film. Really glad I watched it. Really glad I'm now more enlightened to who Bob Dylan was as a person. A dick, but a very talented dick. And someone who...
He fought for civil rights.
Fought the good fight. Alex is pointing at his nether regions because I'm assuming he thinks he's got a talented... And given how much he was shagging in the film, maybe he does. Yeah, good film. I won't watch it again. I might listen to some Bob Dylan music more often now. And by more often, I mean more than never before. Yeah, good film. I'd recommend it. Go watch it. Timothée Chalamet is excellent. I want to see more of his films. I hope he gets to be the great that he wants to be. But I probably won't watch this again.
So, coming off the back of what the other two have said, I will agree with Alex. I love a biopic as well. Some of my favourite films are biopics. Like Moneyball, for instance. Moneyball's a biopic, and that's one of my favourite films. But that film is 2 hours and 20 minutes long. I don't care how long a film is, either, same as Alex. But I care about being told a concise, coherent story that keeps me compelled and glued to my seat to want to know what happens next.
I agree.
And this film didn't do that. I as I said before, I don't think this film tells you a coherent story in a concise way, in a compelling way, to keep you on your seat for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I think that's ultimately why it shouldn't be nominated for things like Best Direction, Best Picture, Best Screenplay. There are certain moments in this film that I think are really good and I enjoyed, but overall, I don't think...
Shouldn't even have been nominated.
No, I don't think so.
This film's all about the character performances for me. The character acting is great.
Out of the nominations it did get, I think Chalamet is definitely right to be nominated. Unfortunately, I can't comment on Adrian Brody's performance in The Brutalist because I've not seen that yet. But if he had won, I wouldn't have been surprised. I think his performance is very good. I ultimately decide on a film if I'm like how good a film is based upon how much I recommend it. And I wouldn't recommend this film to people. I'm happy I watched it. I was very excited to watch this film. I really wanted to know. As I said, I'm not the hugest Bob Dylan fan in the world, but I love his music. Some of his music I absolutely love and listen to a lot. So I was very excited to watch this film, but the film just ultimately didn't do it for me. I think, yeah, as I've said before, it doesn't entice you enough to keep you sat on your seat for 2 hours and 20 minutes. Like, I don't think I would have actually finished the film unless I needed to review all of it for this podcast. Genuinely. And I don't do that with films a lot. I genuinely, if I've stuck with a film, if I've put a film on, I will watch it to the end. But ultimately, there was a point in this film where I was like, I really can't be bothered to finish this.
I kind of agree with you. And you mentioned length. Like, I think a long film's fine, but you're right. It just didn't grip for the whole 2 hours and 20-minute runtime.
Ultimately,
Alex is fuming.
Yeah, I know, Alex is fuming. Ultimately, I think that this film should have concentrated on different story points. And I actually, come to think of it and discussing it with you guys, I think the Going Electric scene maybe should have been in the middle of the film and see how his career progressed after that. And I think that would have been more a compelling story to see the trials and tribulations after having such a career-defining performance, to see what happened afterwards. Because all it does is go, yeah, he went on to make 55 albums and sell out and make a fuck ton of money and win a Pulitzer Prize. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend this film. I think the only nominations it deserved were Best Actor for Timothée Chalamet and Best Achievement in Costume Design for Ariane Phillips.
And Best Sound.
No, too much mumbling. Genuinely, don't go watch this film,
Whoa.
from my opinion. If you want a musician biopic, go watch Ray or Walk the Line and have fun with those films.
Just sorry, I know this is takes, but I just want to jump in with a question, kind of a question, and frame it a certain way. You mentioned that Going Electric might have been a better name, and that might have been a better thing to focus upon. But we have to remember this is a biopic, and it's not about where folk music was going and where electric music was coming in and rock and roll. It is about Bob Dylan as a person, and then also him living that through coming up as a folk musician and then finishing as a rock musician, and his genre bending ways.
He was a dick in the film during that time period, is still a dick. Yeah. You've got everything you need to know there.
Yeah, but I think it would, as a film and talking about Bob Dylan's life, like this, remember, this only covers like the first 4 years of his 60-year career, right? So as a biopic, surely the thing that ultimately changes his career as the genre-bending musician he ends up becoming shouldn't be at the end of the film, should be in the middle.
Chandler, we could, if you want, we can have like a Carry On or Police Academy level of Complete Unknown series where we get Complete Unknown 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 up until now.
Yeah, James Mangold, please don't do that. I beg of you.
I have said that Bob Dylan's a dick. I love you, Bob. If you ever hear this before you leave us.
Bob Dylan's never gonna fucking listen to this.
You have no idea how obscure his podcast taste is. You know he's sat there going, I just listened to the Three Takes of Stupidity. I don't know why he sounds like a South Park character. I just listened to Three Takes of Stupidity.
I will say, definitely 3 takes there. Alex really liked the film. I'm definitely middle ground. Chandler hated it.
Yeah, that's good. That's the first time we've ever had someone actually going on a film. As we always say, everyone, this is an opinion-based podcast, even if Chandler's opinion is wrong. That was the story of Bob Dylan. This is the second of our Oscars 2025 trilogy. Join us next time for James's pick, Anora.
Yeah, I mean, we have to watch the film that won the most Oscars, right? So, yeah, Nora.
Anora.
You know what it's about, James?
Mikey Madison is Anora, a young escort from Brooklyn meets and impulsively marries the son of a Russian oligarch. So it's Pretty Woman, but in 2025.
Pretty Woman in 2025. So they're still recycling in Hollywood. That's good to see. It's goodbye from James.
See ya.
It's goodbye from Chandler.
Like a Rolling Stone.
And it's goodbye from me. And of course, if you're travelling to the North Country Fair, tell them to listen to the 3 Takes of Stupidity, please.
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 This podcast has ended like it's blowing in the wind. Bye.
Don't forget to rate, review, and share the podcast. It really helps us grow.
Follow us on all our socials, plus our individual letterboxd accounts. The links can be found in the description at www.hopwithtwops.bio/3takes, or search for 3 Takes of Stupidity on most platforms. Please send us your film and series suggestions on our Hop page or to 3takesofstupidity@gmail.com. Thank you and hope to see you soon.